So now we have the legs and all the material that we need in the area that we're going to build the transport line in the greenhouse. So we're going to do this in the place that the transport line is actually going to be. So we've already put the one side on, now we're going to put the other side on. And you'll notice that on the leg, we've put the leg in from below, but we've not set the height yet. Very important, do not set the height. Just leave it down low, build your transport line. You can build all the ones you have in a row. Sometimes there might only be 2 in a row, sometimes there's going to be 12 in a row, there could be 25 in a row. You want them all set out so we can get them straight first and then on the right level. So right now we're just building, we're just putting things together. So this is how you put the side profile onto the leg. You line up the bolt hole, slide them in, put a washer and a nut on there. On the top and bottom there's only 2 bolts for each side. Just like when we laid it out, there was only 2. And then we're going to look for that mark that we put on. We're going to line it up with the mark. Make sure it's nice and straight and bolt it down. And the legs are on, and that's all that takes. Okay, so the next thing we're putting in is a drive motor wheel. And that goes on the side of the transport line. Your transport line will already have the AirPods in, the cross members, all the legs that are required, and it's in the place it's going to be. It's already leveled and in line with the other transport lines. So now what you do, you take off the wheel that's in the way, you put some T-bolts in, and now they're not always easy to put in. Sometimes you have to pry them in a little bit, and then you can hang the wheel off of that. The one that we're hanging right now has an AirPod attached to it, so that one can go up and down. As often you'll see it in an area where there's a crane or a robot, but mostly they don't have AirPods going up and down. But this one does, just to show you what the difference is. Once you got it in place, you tighten it down, and later on, when we have a container, we will make it to the correct height. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the raceway. Now the raceway gets laid out just as in the diagram. You put it everywhere it needs to be. We have little feet for underneath the raceway as well, so that holds it up off the floor. Then you're going to come to a point where you need to put in an access panel, and that's going to hold one of these Aussie boxes, or it could also hold a connection box for your motors. Now the way to put one of these in is to line it up properly to make sure that a bolt hole is used on both sides of it, right? So that these bolt holes line up with that bolt hole and that bolt hole. Then you can cut out that amount around it. And that way you have a nice big opening, but we can use the bolt holes to bolt this onto the side. And we're going to use the bolt holes on the bottom actually, okay? But they line up all the way across. Another thing you're going to need to do is put a partition in. And what you have are these 2 little pieces, this little piece here that holds this partition rail. And it goes right down the center so that we can keep the high voltage and low voltage separated. So you just slide it in, put that in, and clip it. And that's it. And just put that down the center everywhere. Now when you come to a corner, you don't need to go all the way to the corners, because that way you can still run the cables around, okay, just like you see here. What we can do beforehand is prep these guys. If you're gonna, these are the boxes, you just slide this lever over, pop off the back, put that on here. You got 3mm bolts that you put in. And there's going to be a nut on the other side, tighten them down, and you're good and just ready to go later on. When that gets mounted, all you have to do is take this box, put the box in place, push the switch over, and just lock back on again. So now we're going to talk about this communication cable. You have this little guy here all set up, and they're all in the raceway everywhere that you need it. But now they need to communicate back to the system. And the way we do that is with these 2 communication cables. And there are a couple important things about it. One, it needs to be one continuous piece all the way through the system. That's why all the raceway has to be put in right away. Follow your diagram, how these are run. But now to install them, you'll see that the top is yellow and the bottom is black. So the yellow wire just goes right in to the yellow side. Now the thing about this yellow wire is got a little bit of an indent on the one side, a little relief, so it can only go in one way. The black wire goes the same. Can only go in one way.
Whoa.
And now you're ready to put the box back on. And once you put it on and do this, and then slide this over, I'm not doing that right now, there are pins in the back that are going to go right through that wire to communicate to the box. So it's important that you run all of this first, make sure it's all correct, and then go back and put on these boxes. Don't be in such a hurry to put them all on right away. Make sure your cables are laid out correctly. Okay, so next we're going to talk about how our track is all laid out. So we have our track, you put all the pieces together, you need sometimes to intersect, all those parts and pieces are going to be in your package. So just follow your diagram and how it gets laid out. We like to kind of put it in the center of the transport line. Then you're going to run all your cabling, right? You have your power cable and your communication cable, so you put these boxes in, it's in the right spot. You run the cable through, you've connected on this side and on the orange piece, then back out the other side again and run along, go to the next one, hook it in, run it out, and continue on down to all the rest. For the power, let's say for motors, you have motor groups. Every motor group is connected with one wire. So that wire is going to come in. You're going to come into a box like this, or a box like this one that you can see here. You can power two motors off of this. So you want to power the motor that you have close by you, or maybe you want to put the box between the two motors, run the cabling to both motors. Then you're going to daisy chain off to the next one. Off of here you can have two motors. Obviously in a real set these are going to be farther apart. Now the next thing is we need to communicate with everything. So we have orange boxes like this, and it's a proximity sensor to know where the table is. And often you'll see them in the corner of the transport line. So this has to come in. We have on our motor drives here, two cables actually go there. It's actually a single cable to the motor, but then you have a special Y, and that comes back, and that Y, one side will be an input, and one side is going to be an output. An input is something that we're going to receive information from, like an orange box, and one half of the motor. An output is going to be a motor because we want to create it to drive. You might have some air lifting sets. Those are also outputs. We need to be able to raise the two bars that are in the transfer line up. There's also going to be a input from that as well, because there's going to be on your crossbar another one of these guys here to show that it actually lifted or that it's back down again. Very important in automated systems. So now that you have this in on the box, one half is all inputs, one half is all outputs. So now we're going to hook up some of the cables. So like I said, a cable, a single cable will come from the motor, but then you're going to have this Y, it goes up to that, and that's going to go to our orange box. So the cable's going to run down the tray. You might take it out in a certain spot to go to where you need to be. Over here though, we're going to bring it through the side and go to the orange box. So I'm going to hook it to this orange box just to show you, but you have to hook it up with the box that's right here. So the cables are labeled. There's an S1, and that's this one right here, and that's going to go on output 3. And then you have an S2, and that's going to go on input 1. Very important always to get that correct, to make sure you look at the cable, that it is an S1, it's going to output 3. You want to put it in there, tighten it up, and do that for this. You're going to see that in your diagram, how to hook it up. You're going to see in your diagram how to hook up the orange boxes. That's always going to be an input, but watch your diagram. For every single transport line that has electrical in it, there's a diagram showing exactly what to do. We're just trying to guide you here as a for instance. So now we're going to talk about the high voltage side for the motors. You're going to be running a cable first to every one of these boxes. and you're going to run the cable along here, come in to the bottom, hook in your cable, and then run another cable from the outside, from this side, back in to the next box, run it in, run it out. So that the bottom part is always your power going through. Now on the top, you can take one out and run it to a motor, right? And then the other one over here is also run. Yep, put it through here, and that's run to this motor over here. And then all you need to do is connect all the wires together. All the black ones have the number 1, 2, and 3 on them. So hook all the 1s together, the 2s together, and 3s together, of course, and the grounds all together. And that's as simple as it is to hook up a motor group. So as you're running your wires, we have a PVC pipe here that's holding your air. But you can also add another one below, and that just slides on. It's these little C brackets that you attach to your leg. You can add another one below it. They just go together. Add another piece of pipe, and then I can run my high voltage to that side. So we try to, when we're running everything, high voltage to the same side you put the high voltage on, to that side. Low voltage on this side. We're going to come through here, put another pipe coming out the other way, and put that through there. Just to try and keep the wires as much as we can off the ground and have a neat looking installation. So it's very important then that while you're cutting wire and running all these wires, they're thinking about running it through here long enough all the way to your motor, and then give yourself a little extra space as well. You know, there is extra wire, but there's not tons of it, so don't waste it either. So we're going to talk about grounding. The first thing I want to mention though is these little bolts that you're putting all the raceway together with. You want to make sure that when you put it in, the head is on the inside and the bolt is on the outside. A couple reasons probably is one, inside is nice and clean. On the outside, I now have a bolt to put my cable to. So I need to ground from this motor to a bolt. So I can use that bolt right there that I just attached and ground it to my motor. We have other little pieces of grounding wire right here. I don't know if you can see that, but that's connecting this rail to this rail. So every time you have a new rail, every time you make a corner, you always have to put a grounding wire between the two. And now we need to ground our transport line. So there we have a T-bolt. The same type of T-bolt to use for mounting the motors. You can put a T-bolt on the side, top, bottom, doesn't matter. And then bolt that also to the side. You can attach it to here if you like, to where you already put the other one. As long as we have our ground from our transport line to the raceway, all the raceway is connected, all the motors are connected to the raceway, now you're grounded. So this is a drawing that shows the electrical components on any given transport line. So you're going to get one of these for every transport line that has any type of electrical components on it. On this one, there's a pusher. We have a motor drive. We have proximity switches on each end to show that the table is in the right position. We have proximity switch on each end of this pusher to know that we've pushed all the way and that it's back. We have some air going up and down, and that's going to be these guys here. This is the motor. This is the M. It means that you need an Aussie box, which is one of these. And the I represents the motor itself. So now, when you look at this drawing as well, you're going to see all the outputs, inputs and outputs, and all the inputs and outputs on it as well. But what we see here, we have 1 and a 2 here, a 1 and a 2. That means you're going to need 2 boxes, because there's a lot of things going on here. A lot of the transport lines will only need 1 box, but one like this needs 2. On each one, it's going to show you where it's going to go. So you can read over here that in IO 1/2, which is this one, it's kind of weird how they do it. This is 1/2, this is 2, 3/4, and this is 4. We try to simplify that to say 1, 2, 3, 4. But you'll see that there's a 1, a 2, and a 3, and a 4. Just take off the slash and what's behind it. That way it's just easier to follow along. And all you need to do is run your cables from each one of these things. Like we said before for the motor, we're going to run a cable to our input number 1 and output number 3. Again, right here showing you the wire that you're going to use and the S1, the S2. So just follow along closely. If you ever have questions, feel free to call and we can help you out. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about wires. We already talked about the Y wire that you need. We have other wires as well that connect to certain things. So this has a small end on it. That's probably going to go to an air valve, for instance. This side always goes to the box. So while you're running this, a good idea would be, like we have here with our motor, we're going to connect our wire that we need for the motor up in the right way. We're going to look on our diagram and see what output this is, and that's going to be the 1. So you're going to put a 1, 0 here. On the other side, you're going to put, you have the S1, the S2, and maybe put some tape on here or something and mark the output, input and the output that they are, so that as you run all your wires, you're connecting them, and you need to find out later on what's going on, what might be wrong if there's an issue, we can retrace the wires again. Another type of wire that we're going to have is actually, again, this one here. So this is going to connect your motor drive, but also you could do the orange box, because it's the right size for the bottom of the orange box. That's going to run back. Now you can see the cable's not very long. Other cables are longer. There could be even longer cables. So the thing of it is that you need to know what wire you need, see the distance you're going to run, and choose the right length of that cable. It's very important. There's lots of cables you're going to get. Sort them all out by sizes, by ends, and then from there you can use what you need to use. You're also going to have some wires that will have just bare wire on the other end. What that's going to be is, if you have a push button anywhere, that's going to go back again to your orange box. You're going to know what output to put it on, or input, depending what it is, from your diagram. And that's going to get hooked up into here, and there could be a push button switch on there. It could be a speed control for your transport line. Many things we can use it for. So you want to be very aware of the type of cable you're using. Does it have the bare ends on it, like this one? Does it have a small end on it, like this one, for different things you're going to use? Or again, does it have the two big ends? It's got the one for the orange box and one for your proximity switch. So just be mindful. Lots of wires. Organize them. Use the length that you need. There should be enough for everything. It all depends where you put this box in your transport line as well. And that's still something that you need to decide. You know, you're going to put all your product on your conveyor line, then kind of put this where you think it makes sense, and then run your cables. So we're just going to talk a little bit more about the motors, because the motor has a few wires coming in and out of it. So we have an X1 and X2, and on the drawing is X1, X2. Remember, the X2 gets split, so this is the X2. We're coming again towards split. We're putting the S1 and the S2 on there in the proper way. And the other one, so we're going to take this off. This one came with a cover as well. We take the cover off. You can now take your other wire, put that on there as well. And that's going to hook up to your output 1. And those are all the wires you need, other than your high voltage wire that's going to go right in here. But now you need to tighten everything. You get this weird looking little tool here, and that can go right on here. You're going to tighten everything down as much as you can. Please don't use any other wrench, just use this. Once they're all the way tight, now they're waterproof. So you got to be diligent, go to every single one and make sure they are tight, as well as on the box. Get in there, get them tightened up. And do that to all of them. So now that we have all of our wires in, they're tight. We've connected everything to this that we need to. We have little plugs here that you're going to put over top of any one that is not used. And that gets screwed down. And with a flathead screwdriver, you can make it a little tighter to get everything to be airtight, or sorry, watertight.